I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm in the middle of America here, so it's great to meet you.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Well, cool, man. Let's get into your life here, and let's begin the journey by asking you this. 4 years ago, you know, this pandemic began, and the global
Yeah.
response from different countries varied, but we were all still wondering how long it was going to last, how it was going to affect us. How did you make it through that time period, and how did it ultimately change the way that you live your life now?
So it was a real test because leading up to that, I was doing motivational speaking. So I was going in just mainly in Southern Ontario, but I was going to different cities and speaking at events. And I was doing online coaching, but a lot of that was by meeting people in person and then driving them to my online coaching. Once that stopped, my whole way of doing things had to change. I had to come up with a completely different strategy. So what I did at that time, I started doing podcasts, getting being a guest on podcast shows, really just to be able to start to keep speaking. I wanted to keep the speaking skill going, and I focused more on making YouTube videos to once again enhance my speaking and maybe attract speaking opportunities. But because everything was stopped, I really didn't have, like, I was basically just treading water and trying to keep my head above water as far as doing a lot of my online entrepreneur stuff went. So I found that I went back into my writing, and I wrote and released another book, and I ended up winning an award for that book. But everything that I was doing at that time, it was 10 times harder than anything I had ever done leading up to that. But I also found that I had more time to think, more time to reflect. And I realized that this thing that I was doing was really chasing money. I was chasing money, chasing status, but it wasn't really bringing me a lot of satisfaction. It was nice, but as I slowed down and I realized I wasn't spending as much money, my money started to pile up. Just it was kind of like magic. It just started piling up because I wasn't traveling all the time, wasn't doing things, and I realized that I have more than enough, that I don't have to do this hustle and grind all the time. And my wife was doing the same thing. So she was building up her real estate business, and then I was building up this entrepreneur mindset coaching business. And so we were both busy all the time, and then running around with our kids. That whole disruption, I call it, the big disruption, it was really a blessing in disguise for me, because I got to reset and really set my priorities and start to say to myself, okay, what's really important and what's not. So as I got into the summer of last year, I shut down my coaching just temporarily, and I had a merch line that I was pushing, and I shut that down, and my YouTube, and I just started focusing on my books and the mindset, helping people with mindset. And that whole pace really, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulder, and I just felt lighter, happier, and everything just seemed to be easier. And that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, so let's get exactly what to the heart and soul of what you do right now in 2024. I want to put you in front of
Yeah.
a bunch of grade school kids, let's say third graders at career day. One of the kids
Yeah.
is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So I really help people take their imagination, take the dreams and goals that they have, and show them how to turn it into a tangible reality. So I show you how to do what you want to do and actually achieve it.
So let's go back to the beginnings of your life where you were born and raised, and how did these seeds of you helping others, coaching, mentoring, how did all of these become kind of the backbone of, and as a writer too, how did all of this start
Yeah.
and become who you are?
So I was born in England, and I came to Canada when I was 4. And so I was the oldest of my brothers. I have two brothers. So you're kind of pushed into leadership as being the oldest brother. You're almost like a second parent. And because my brothers, the one is 5 years younger, and then the other one is 10 years younger, so I was really kind of like a second parent. Um, but as I found my friend group, they were always asking me advice, always asking me for insight. And then when I started jumping into the work world, I always had the approach of being a sponge, learning as much as I could as quickly as possible, because being a minority, you kind of have to. push your way through. So you have to sometimes have to work a little harder. But I was finding people were always coming to me and asking me, well, how do you do this? Or what do we do in this situation? So I ended up becoming a manager. I started out as just a general laborer at this factory, and I became a manager just because people kept asking me, so they kept promoting me, and I didn't realize that it was something that I was always thinking about, but I didn't realize the connection of when you think about wanting to do something and you think about it a lot, you actually can make that happen even if it's unintentional at times. So once I found that and I started understanding, because in 2008, 2009, I was working in that factory. I was the big manager there. And then when the market crashed, the job stopped. And I realized I'm not in control of my financial situation. I'm not in control of my career. I put all that on somebody else, trusting that they were going to make the right decisions for me economically and career wise. So I had to start taking charge and learning how mindset works and learning how focused thought works to be able to make that stuff happen. So by doing that and always having people asking me advice, that's where I transitioned into, okay, this is actually a career. You can get paid to help people solve problems. And if you have unique solutions to their problems, they'll pay you more money. So I really started focusing on, okay, how do I do that? And that transitioned into writing. Started writing books with my mom at first about really the law of attraction, and I was using it as how do you use it for business and career, and she was using it for the spiritual side. So we wrote a book together, but it was like two different perspectives of using this tool. And then people started asking me, well, do you have stuff for business, just for entrepreneurs? And so I created the one chapter books, which really just helps solve one business problem at a time, one chapter at a time. And that really kind of took off. And that's really how I got into. So it wasn't really by intention, but I kind of got nominated into becoming a leader, have leadership roles, and then I learned how to monetize that, how to develop it into an income stream, and really help people and get compensation for helping people, and not feeling guilty about getting compensation for helping people.
So, in your career, who would you consider an inspiration or a hero for you?
So you're gonna find this kind of weird, but I really because so I when I was growing up as a teenager and young adult, I had a rap reggae band, and the hip hop scene really inspired me, because these guys, they would rap about things they haven't done yet, and they would just go and do it. And they weren't asking for permission. They weren't waiting for getting a record contract or anything. They would just take charge and find a place that wanted to hear them rap, hear them perform, and they would go and do it. So that's always been my attitude. It's like I'm not waiting for someone to say I can do something.
Yep.
I'm just taking charge and I'm going to go do it. So really, it was that whole hip hop mentality that I still carry today that inspires me to not wait for something to happen, but make something happen.
There's a famous story out there, and it gets kind of muddled a little bit, but the basic essence is Steven Spielberg's first real job was just going on the Universal lot and sitting at a desk and getting a nameplate and acting like he worked there. And he kind of got gradually grandfathered in to what they were doing. And that's it. I've always felt like that in life, when act like you belong there. I remember years ago when I was single in my 20s, they were opening up this place. It was Union Station. It was a big train hub for years. And they remodeled it and they reopened it. I was working for the architectural engineering firm, and there was a Motown band playing. It was all these fancy foods and drinks going on. And a friend of mine, we were like, let's put on our fanciest clothes. Let's see how we can get in there. And there was a light up ring that they gave everybody that went in. So we walked
Yeah,
up to the door and put that hand in our pocket, acted like we belonged. We got in there. It was a fantastic night.
yeah, exactly.
So that's the kind of thing, man. Just do it. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people don't realize how easy it is if you have the confidence.
Yeah.
It's really just having the confidence that you should be there. Like I was talking to my son, so he's on a competitive basketball team, and he was struggling. He was on the bench. And he was struggling, and I said, It's because you don't feel like you belong here. You think you got lucky, but you beat out all these other guys to get on this team. There was only I think it was like 13, 14 seats, 14 spots. So I said, start acting like you're supposed to be here and listen to the coach and start doing what you need to do, because all you're missing is the confidence. You have the talent and the skills, you don't have the confidence. So he started doing that, and just this weekend that passed, he got to start. It was his first game that he got to start. It was really just by realizing you're supposed to be there, you should
Yep.
be there.
Yep.
Now act like you're supposed to be there.
Absolutely. Well, I think about that with Tom Brady being one of the last draft picks of his class.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
even this
Yep,
dude that was for the 49ers last year, he was the last pick of that draft. And it's like they
yeah,
went in there with swagger. So, um,
yeah.
so let me ask you this. If you could meet anybody alive right now on the planet, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Huh, that's a good question. I didn't really think of that. I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of people you could learn from. Hmm, I don't know. It'd have to be, I guess, somebody famous, somebody pretty inaccessible.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your inspiration every day? What makes you do the work that you do? Because you're leading people to a much better place and you're giving a lot of yourself, but you also have to evolve too as a human being. So what is that combined effort that gets you up every day?
So I like to challenge myself. So anything that I'm doing, it can't be a sure thing. There's got to be a chance to fail, because failing is learning, and that's how you get better at what you're doing to build your skills. So I like the challenge of putting out new books, or going on podcast shows, not knowing what kind of questions you're going to ask, and really challenging yourself to be ready to to deal with whatever comes your way, and then try to grow from it, try to learn and grow from it. So that's what really inspires me.
What's been one of your best fan letters or responses from your book?
So I get a lot of great reviews, and one of the reviews I got, it was a 3-star review, but it read like a 5-star. I was like wow, this is actually way better review than what the stars say. This person really enjoyed the book. I don't know why they only gave it the 3 stars, but things like that. I find, even if you can find like some constructive criticism, it's a way that you can look at it and say, okay, what can I do better for next time? But yeah, just whenever you love pats on the back. So I I love reading like the 5-star reviews, especially because it just feels good. Like, yeah, that person really got it. They really understood it, and it helped them. It helped them to learn something or see things in a new perspective.
So as a writer, what was the first book for you growing up that was really seminal in your development or you love or you return to? What is that book for you?
So you're gonna find this a little bit funny too, but there is this book series when I'm not sure how old I was, like 8 or 10. I was really into, and it was called Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know
I remember
those?
that. It was
Yeah.
great.
So I love those because you could read it multiple times and just choose a different
Uh-huh.
option and get a whole completely different story.
Yeah.
And so I love the creativeness of that, and just the whole way that it was put together. So I really did a lot of those. Um, but I think a big influence for me is not actually a book. It's two movies. It's the movie of Pulp Fiction
Oh
and the movie
man.
The Matrix,
Yeah.
because the way that they wrote those, like Pulp Fiction, I kind of use that as sort of a structure for a lot of the books I did for business, which is heavy dialogue. Because I found like the dialogue is a great way to teach, and then the Matrix is just like the mind bending philosophies and things that the concepts that they teach. So those I think had bigger impact for me as a writer than actual books.
So when I actually went to Hollywood for the first time in the late 90s, of course, when you grow up and you see movies, you're bespeckled by the notion of Hollywood. All
Yeah.
of these little shops sell scripts. And at that time, and I love Pulp Fiction, I've seen it countless times. I got
Yeah.
the actual script that
Wow.
Quentin wrote with Roger Avery.
Yeah.
And I held on to that thing, and it was like archaic and thick, and you could just go through the whole thing. And there was a kid that was friends with my stepson, and I gave it to him. He was an aspiring actor, and I gave him that.
Mhm.
But man, what a script and what an idea! Because I don't know that that whole switcheroo timeline thing was that robust until Quentin did it. Because it
Yeah,
just threw you off the whole thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and you don't realize until you watch it a few times all the little things
Uh-huh.
where there's characters in the scene, but they're just kind of walking through the scene. You
Yeah.
know, you realize, oh, that's from earlier in the movie, but
Uh-huh.
it's later in the movie in the actual movie, right? The way that he chopped it all up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And when I seen that movie, I was blown away. It's like, wow, this is brilliant.
Oh, it is the
This
whole
is
thing.
the whole way, yeah, the whole way they laid it out,
Yeah.
and you're trying to put in your head, okay, which part is this? Is this before
Uh-huh.
that other scene, or is this after? And yeah,
Yeah.
I love how the beginning is not like it's the beginning of the movie's the end of the movie, but it's not really.
Yep. I
Yeah,
know that's wild, man.
it's
That whole
yeah, it's
thing's
crazy.
crazy. And then it
Yeah,
revived Al Green's career, the soundtrack, the whole thing.
yeah,
Like he
yeah.
just hit the jackpot with that. So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've done and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
So I would say because I won an award for writing. So the first book I wrote, which was really based on the structure of Pulp Fiction with all the dialogue, and I had like stories within a story, so it was really creative. And I won an award for that, and then I won an award for the second book I wrote. I won two awards, and the reason why I'm so proud of that is because like when I was in I think grade four, I was at a meet the teacher night, and that's the time when I was into those choose your own adventure books. So I was writing like short stories and stuff, and the teacher said to my parents, this kid's never going to amount to much in academics because he's horrible at spelling. And it was kind of true. I'm still not that great at spelling, but so for me to be able to get good enough where I can write books and then actually win an award for it, it was like a huge, like it's a personal impossible for me. It's like that on paper that should have never happened. I shouldn't have been able to do it, but perseverance and really working on the constructive criticism from each book and then trying to make the next book better was how I got there. So I think that is like the biggest accomplishment career wise that I've had so far.
So as a coach, you have to give good advice to clients. What's the best
Yeah.
advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten was from another coach. His name is Jim Lutz, and he told me, you gotta get out of your comfort zone. You gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I don't know if it's his original or he got that from someone, but that really resonated with me. And then another good piece of advice I got was from a boss that I had, and he said the person with the most paper wins. So it's always like if you know more and you have more documented, you're able to be able to surpass other people. So
Interesting.
those two pieces of advice really helped me because the one was really being organized and making sure you know what you're doing, and the other one was don't get comfortable in what you're doing.
Yeah,
Always push yourself to do something that maybe is not so fun. Like I've done some of these podcast interviews and they're live, and I know some people they don't want to do live ones because if you screw up, it's live. But I'm like, well, when you talk to somebody, it's live.
yeah,
Right now we're talking, it's live. So, uh, but it is getting out of your comfort zone of okay, not everything's controlled, not everything can be perfect.
that's true. Yeah, you got the true heart of a jazz guy. Yeah, that's true improv right there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you? And would that version of you listen?
So that version of me probably wouldn't listen because at 18 you already know everything.
Of
There's nothing
course.
else that you can learn.
Yeah.
Right? You've got it all. But my advice would be the same as what my coach told me was get out of your comfort zone because for me speaking on stage that was a big fear and I really didn't want to do it. Being in front of people all the time, I didn't like that. So I kind of got pushed into sales when it was once that company went under. We were hired to bring it back. There was like four of us executives, But my role before was production manager, and they said, well, we need sales. We don't need, there's nothing to produce right now. So they put me into sales, and that was like the biggest fear I had, because first of all, I got to talk to people I don't know. I got to phone people I don't know. There's usually a gatekeeper that doesn't want you to talk to the person you're trying to talk to. So you got to learn how to navigate all that. But I had to build that up and start to master that craft, because that was at that time the only way I was going to make money. So my advice would always be like, don't be afraid of change. Welcome it, learn from it, and then understand, okay, what is it that I got to do to get good at it? Because a personal impossible is a thing that other people are doing that you could do, but you just don't know how to do it, and you don't have the confidence to do it. So it's like, okay, how is this guy doing it? How is this person able to make random phone calls and get sales? Or how is this other person able to get up on stage and start speaking? And once you learn that there's a skill, there's a craft, there's an attitude, and there's also a process, that you're not going to be perfect this first time that you try it. It's just like when you made love the first time, it wasn't the greatest time, but the more you practice, the more you did it, the better you got, until you become an expert at it. So that's kind of the mentality that I have, and that's what I would tell myself. I don't know if myself would listen at 18, but I would try.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. You have so much going on, all these pockets of people, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So I'm really just a regular guy that has done some things that other people are afraid to do, and because I'm able to do that, I'm able to show people how. Because I'm like from a small town. I grew up in a small town. It was like 30,000 people at the time, and I was able to. I was telling my son this because he was same thing. He was talking about you know basketball, and he's not the best in even in the city. I came from a small town and went to a bigger city and conquered that with music, and then here living in London, I went to Toronto and got well known for speaking. So it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is what you want to do and where you want to go. So just because nobody knows who you are, you can make your name if you have the confidence to go out there and start meeting people and making the connections you need to make to get on the stages or to do the things that you want to do. So I feel like I'm just a regular guy that's done some really cool stuff.
So speaking of the cool stuff, if anyone wants to read your award-winning work, reach out, hire you, any of the good business, where can they go?
So I would the first place I like people to go is Instagram. So it's W.T.Hamilton on Instagram. And the reason is because then you can DM, we can have a conversation. I do have a website, mindsetforsuccesstraining.com, where you can link the books, and there's some free stuff, some free giveaways on there as well. But on Instagram, you can also hit the Amazon link, and you get a link to my author page, so you can check out all the books.
Right on. W.T. Hamilton, thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the good work out there, man.
I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.